Imagine waking up in the middle of the night. Not because of a sound. Not because of the freezing cold. But because every instinct in your body is screaming. Run. Right now. You don't grab your backpack. You don't put on your boots. You don't even unzip the entrance. Instead, you slash your way out of your own tent with a knife. Barefoot. Into temperatures cold enough to kill you within minutes. Now ask yourself one question. What could possibly be so terrifying, that death in the freezing wilderness seemed like the safer choice? For more than 60 years. Scientists have investigated it. Detectives have reopened it. Military experts have analyzed it. And millions of people have tried to solve it. Yet not one theory explains every piece of evidence. Because what happened on that mountain still has no answer. If you enjoy real mysteries that continue to puzzle the world, make sure you subscribe to Xyromist and turn on notifications. Every week, we uncover true stories that are stranger than fiction. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Winter. 1959. The Soviet Union. Thousands of miles from the nearest city. Beyond roads. Beyond villages. Beyond almost every sign of civilization. A group of young hikers prepared for what should have been another routine expedition. They weren't tourists. They weren't beginners. Every member of the team was experienced in surviving extreme winter conditions. Some had already completed expeditions that most people wouldn't even attempt. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. Quiet. Disciplined. Respected by everyone around him. His plan was simple. Lead 8 friends across the northern Ural Mountains. Complete the journey. Earn the highest hiking certification in the Soviet Union. It was supposed to be a challenge. Not a death sentence. Before leaving, the group laughed together for photographs. They packed cameras. Food. Axes. Skis. Warm clothing. Everything they could possibly need to survive. Friends who saw them leave described them as excited. Confident. Full of energy. No one could have imagined. Those photographs would become the last images ever taken of them alive. As the expedition moved deeper into the mountains, the weather became brutal. Snowstorms reduced visibility to almost nothing. Powerful winds pushed against them every step of the way. But this wasn't unusual. They had trained for conditions exactly like these. Every evening, they pitched their tent. Cooked meals. Wrote in their journals. And joked with one another. The camera they carried captured smiling faces. Snowball fights. Even playful moments after exhausting days of hiking. Nothing suggested fear. Nothing suggested panic. If danger existed, it hadn't revealed itself yet. Then something unexpected happened. One member of the group, Yuri Yudin, began suffering severe pain caused by an existing medical condition. He struggled to continue. Eventually, he made the painful decision to turn back. His friends hugged him goodbye. They promised they'd meet again after the expedition. It was the last time he ever saw them. For the rest of his life. Yudin carried a burden almost impossible to imagine. He survived. Only because he got sick. The remaining 9 hikers continued toward their destination. Their final campsite was established on the slope of a mountain known locally as Kolotsayakal. Translated from the Mansi language. Its name is often interpreted as Dead Mountain. An unsettling coincidence. Or something more. At the time, nobody gave the name much thought. They were focused on staying warm before continuing their journey the following morning. That morning never came. Days passed. Then weeks. When the hikers failed to return on schedule, families became worried. At first, officials weren't. Experienced hikers often returned later than expected. Bad weather could easily delay an expedition. But eventually, a search party was organized. Volunteers, students, soldiers, rescue teams. Aircraft scanned the mountains. Searchers moved slowly through deep snow. Everyone expected to find exhausted hikers waiting for help. Instead, they found silence. Then, one discovery changed everything. Half buried beneath fresh snow, the expedition tent stood alone on the mountainside. It hadn't collapsed. It hadn't blown away. From a distance, it almost looked normal. But as rescuers moved closer, their expressions changed instantly. Something was terribly wrong. The entrance to the tent was still closed. But long cuts had been made through the fabric. Not from outside. From the inside. Investigators examined the tiers again. And again. The conclusion never changed. Whoever made those cuts was trying desperately to escape. As fast as possible. Without using the door. Inside the tent, everything had been left behind. Heavy winter jackets, boots, food, flashlights, maps, even personal belongings. It looked as though the group had abandoned everything in seconds. No experienced survival expert would willingly leave a heated shelter in temperatures below -30°C without shoes. Unless something inside, or outside, the tent terrified them far more than the cold. The investigators stepped outside and noticed another detail. Footprints. Clear enough to follow. There wasn't a chaotic stampede. There wasn't evidence of people running. Instead, the footprints moved away in an almost calm line. Some belonged to people wearing one boot. Others were barefoot. Some wore only socks. The trail stretched hundreds of meters into the darkness. Toward a forest. Then, it disappeared beneath fresh snow. Search teams followed the direction anyway. As they entered the trees, a massive cedar came into view. Beneath it, they found the first two bodies. Frozen together. Almost completely undressed. Their hands were badly damaged. The bark of the tree had been torn away several meters above the ground. Branches were broken nearly 16 feet high. Someone had climbed that tree in absolute desperation. But why? Were they hiding? Watching something? Trying to escape whatever had driven them from the tent? No one could answer. And the deeper investigators searched, the stranger the mystery became. Because those two victims were only the beginning. The remaining 7 hikers had vanished somewhere beneath the endless snow. And what rescuers would discover over the next few weeks would transform a tragic accident into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. The search continued for days. Every hour, the freezing wind buried more evidence beneath fresh snow. Rescuers knew time wasn't on their side. If the remaining hikers were somehow alive, they were running out of time. But deep down, everyone already feared the truth. A few hundred yards from the cedar tree, another body was discovered. It was Igor Dyatlov, the expedition leader. He wasn't lying near the tent. He wasn't near the forest. He was in between. His body faced uphill, toward the campsite. As if, in his final moments, he had been trying to crawl back. One hand was clenched tightly into the snow. His face showed determination. Not panic. He had almost made it. Almost. Over the next several days, 2 more bodies were found along the same path. Each one positioned closer to the forest than the last. It looked less like random deaths, and more like a desperate journey. Investigators began drawing a disturbing conclusion. After leaving the tent, the group had separated. Some stayed beneath the cedar tree. Some tried to return to the tent. And others disappeared completely. No one knew why. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something had forced experienced survival experts into impossible decisions. Weeks passed. Winter slowly loosened its grip. Snow began melting. Then, nearly 3 months after the expedition disappeared, search teams uncovered the final 4 bodies. What they found shocked even seasoned investigators. Unlike the first victims, these hikers weren't lying on the surface. They were buried beneath nearly 4 meters of snow inside a small ravine. Nearby, the remains of a makeshift shelter could still be seen. Broken branches, pieces of clothing, tree limbs arranged as if someone had desperately tried to create protection from the freezing wind. For a brief moment, it appeared they had actually survived longer than the others. But then the autopsy reports arrived. And everything changed. One hiker had suffered a fractured skull. Another had multiple ribs crushed on both sides of the chest. A third had injuries so devastating. Doctors later compared them to the force of a serious car crash. Yet strangely, their skin showed very few external wounds. No deep cuts. No signs of a violent fight. No injuries matching the massive internal damage. It was almost as if an enormous force had compressed their bodies without breaking the surface. One forensic expert later stated the injuries required an incredible amount of pressure, far beyond what a normal human attack could produce. So what caused them? A fall? An avalanche? Some unknown force? Even today, experts disagree. Then investigators noticed another detail. One of the victims, 20-year-old Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue. Parts of her lips were gone. Soft tissue around her face had disappeared. Another victim was missing both eyes. Immediately, rumors spread across the Soviet Union. People whispered about secret experiments, unknown creatures, military cover-ups. But forensic scientists offered another explanation. Bodies left underwater beneath snow for months can naturally lose soft tissue through decomposition and scavenging animals. It sounded reasonable. Yet for many people, it still didn't explain everything. Because mysteries rarely grow from one clue. They grow when dozens of strange clues appear together. Then came perhaps the most controversial discovery of all. Several pieces of clothing recovered from the hikers tested positive for elevated radiation. Not enough to kill anyone, but enough to alarm investigators. Why would ordinary university students be wearing radioactive clothing? Some claimed one member had previously worked in an industrial facility where radioactive contamination was possible. Others argued the readings were too unusual to ignore. Still others believed the radiation connected directly to secret Soviet military testing. No one could prove it. But once that possibility entered public discussion, the mystery became even darker. Witnesses soon added more confusion. Around the same time the hikers disappeared, several people reported seeing strange glowing orange lights crossing the night sky above the mountains. Some described them as silent fireballs. Others believed they were military rockets. Decades later, declassified Soviet records confirmed missile testing did occur in certain regions during that era. But there has never been conclusive evidence linking those launches to the deaths. Were the lights simply coincidence? Or were they connected to whatever frightened the hikers? No one knows. Then investigators looked back at the photographs recovered from the hikers' cameras. Most showed smiling faces. Snow-covered mountains. Friends enjoying the journey. But the final images felt different. One blurred photograph, taken during the last hours of the expedition, appeared to show nothing more than darkness and scattered light. Some believe it captured complete panic. Others insist it's only an accidental photograph. Even today, people continue debating what that final frame truly shows. As the evidence piled up, so did the theories. The avalanche theory argued a slab of snow partially collapsed above the tent. The hikers escaped quickly, then became lost in darkness. For decades, many experts supported this explanation. But critics pointed to one enormous problem. The tent remained mostly standing. The footprints remained visible. And investigators found no obvious signs of a powerful avalanche. Could a small slab avalanche explain everything? Perhaps. But not everyone was convinced. Others suggested powerful katabatic winds. Rare hurricane-like mountain winds created terrifying low-frequency vibrations. Some scientists believe these conditions can trigger intense feelings of fear and panic. Could invisible sound have driven 9 experienced hikers from their shelter? It's an extraordinary idea. Yet laboratory studies suggest such psychological effects are at least possible. Still, even that theory struggles to explain the devastating internal injuries. Every explanation solved one mystery, only to create another. And then, a classified Soviet investigation reached its official conclusion. The hikers had died because of an unknown compelling force. 4 words. No details. No explanation. No answers. The case was quietly closed. But the mystery was only beginning. Because decades later, new investigators would reopen the files. Modern forensic science would examine the evidence again. And what they discovered would reignite one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. For decades, the Dyatlov Pass case refused to die. Books were written. Documentaries were produced. Scientists, detectives, former military officers, and millions of ordinary people all asked the same question. What really happened on that mountain? Every few years, a new theory appeared. And every new theory promised the same thing. This finally solves the mystery. But none of them did. Then, more than 60 years after that freezing night, modern investigators decided to look at the case again. Unlike the original investigation in 1959, they had access to technology the Soviet investigators never imagined. High-resolution satellite maps, computer simulations, snow movement models, advanced forensic analysis. Even artificial intelligence was used to recreate the conditions on the mountain. For the first time, scientists could test theories instead of simply debating them. One theory quickly became the strongest candidate. Not a massive avalanche, but something much smaller. Researchers proposed that a slab avalanche had formed above the tent. Unlike the giant avalanches seen in movies, a slab avalanche can be compact, heavy, and almost silent. According to computer models, the hikers may have pitched their tent on a slope they believed was safe. But while cutting into the snow to level the campsite, they unknowingly weakened the mountain. Hours later, as strong winds continued depositing fresh snow, a heavy slab broke loose. It crashed directly into one side of the tent. Not enough to bury the entire campsite, but enough to trap and seriously injure several people inside. Suddenly, everything began happening at once. The injured couldn't wait. The others believed another collapse was coming. With seconds to react, they cut through the side of the tent instead of wasting precious time opening the entrance. They fled into the darkness, leaving behind boots, coats, everything. For the first time, many pieces of the puzzle seemed to fit. But not all of them. Critics immediately pointed to several unanswered questions. If another avalanche was expected, why did the footprints show the group walking instead of running? Why did they stop beneath the cedar tree instead of continuing downhill? And if several members were badly injured from the very beginning, how did they manage to travel more than a kilometer through deep snow? The avalanche theory explained much, but it still couldn't explain everything. Another theory suggested something even stranger. Military testing. During the Cold War, large areas of the Soviet Union were used for secret experiments. Missiles, explosives, parachute mines. Some researchers believe the hikers unknowingly entered a restricted testing zone. Parachute mines, designed to explode above the ground, create an enormous pressure wave. That pressure can produce devastating internal injuries, while leaving surprisingly few external wounds. It sounded eerily similar to the autopsy reports. But there was one problem. No official documents have ever confirmed military activity on the mountain that night. Without evidence, the theory remains speculation. Others believed the answer wasn't military at all, but psychological. The northern Ural Mountains are known for violent katabatic winds. When these powerful winds move across certain mountain shapes, they can create a phenomenon called infrasound. Humans can't consciously hear it, but some scientists believe prolonged exposure can trigger anxiety, disorientation, and an overwhelming sense of terror. Imagine sitting inside a tent, in complete darkness, feeling certain that something terrible is about to happen, even though nothing is there. Could panic alone have caused 9 experienced hikers to abandon their shelter? Perhaps. But panic still doesn't explain crushed ribs, broken skulls, or the final moments of those found in the ravine. And then, there are the theories that capture the public imagination. Some people blame an unknown creature lurking in the mountains. Others believe the hikers encountered something extraterrestrial. The mysterious orange lights reported in the sky only fueled those ideas. But despite decades of speculation, there has never been credible evidence supporting either claim. The mystery is fascinating enough without inventing monsters. Perhaps the most haunting part of the story isn't the theories. It's the people. 9 young adventurers. They had dreams, families, careers waiting for them. They laughed together, took photographs, planned their futures. None of them knew that the journey they began with excitement would become one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Only one member of the original expedition survived. Yuri Yudin, the young man forced to turn back because of illness. For years, he visited memorials dedicated to his friends. He studied every new theory, read every investigation, hoping someone, anyone, would finally explain what happened. But he passed away without receiving that answer. Today, a monument stands in memory of the 9 hikers. Visitors travel from around the world to see the mountain where the mystery began. The wind still whistles across the frozen slopes. Snow still covers the same silent landscape. And every winter, people look toward that lonely mountainside and ask the same question that investigators asked in 1959. What happened that night? Maybe the avalanche theory is correct. Maybe secret military activity has never been revealed. Or maybe there is one crucial piece of evidence that disappeared forever beneath the snow. Because sometimes history doesn't leave us with answers. Sometimes it leaves us with questions. And perhaps that's why the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to fascinate the world. Not because we know the truth, but because after decades of investigations, scientific studies, and countless theories, no single explanation accounts for every clue. Some mysteries are solved. Others fade into history. But a very rare few continue to challenge everything we think we know. And this is one of them. If this mystery made you question everything you thought you knew, let us know in the comments. What do you think really happened on that mountain? Was it a tragic natural disaster? A hidden military secret? Or something we'll never truly understand? If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Xyromist, and turn on notifications. We uncover the world's darkest mysteries every week. Because sometimes, the most terrifying stories are the ones that are true.